All right, it's 2 p.m. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Doug Minerton. I'm the Vice President of the KMPUD. Our President Epstein is remote today, so he asked me to run the meeting today. This is my first time running a KMPD board meeting, so if I make any mistakes or need any help along the way, I apologize in advance and thank you for your patience with me.
The gendarmes are outside waiting.
Yeah. So first thing we'll do is call to order. And I also mentioned everything today will be via roll call since we have a remote board member. So Peter, please.
Sure.
Roll call.
Epstein?
This is present.
Okay. Mediterranda?
Here.
Schroeder?
Here.
Tucker? Here. Thornbrook here.
All right, we are here with a quorum. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, announcements. General Manager Christensen.
Just like to welcome everybody to the regularly scheduled board meeting. And if you are on Zoom, please use the raise your hand function if you would like to speak.
Yep. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 4, corrections to the agenda or consent calendar.
Before we do, can I just ask Eric your well-being after the fire? Are you?
Yeah, they hopped on it really fast. And it was 50% contained by the next day, 4 acres, but had it gone, it would have gone. It would have taken that place that hasn't burned in. That's almost old growth down there. So yeah, thank you for the.
I'm only aware of this because of an email I was on. It sounds like it's a fire we may all know this, but a fire very close to our PG&E substation. Is that correct? But more important,
No, it's on the same
Tiger Road.
Yeah, it's Tiger Creek Road, but it's on the same power generation system, which is the McCollum River generation, but it's 3 away from Salt Springs downstream.
And your family had to
We evacuated.
evacuate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. When was this?
Early this week.
Monday. Yeah. I just flown back in and I was on the way home and heard it on the radio. Good times.
Oh,
The name was Tiger Fire, I think it was called.
Mhm.
wow.
All right, well, glad everyone is okay. Thanks, Chris, for bringing that up. So agenda item 4, corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar. So do any board members have any corrections they'd like to propose?
I mean,
Okay. We don't need to vote on, do we need to vote on this as a roll call, Eric? Since do we need to vote on this to move
Oh,
forward?
no, if there's no corrections, the agenda stands as is and you'll deal with the, yeah,
Thank you.
and the consent later.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 5. This is comments from the audience. This is an agenda item where it's an opportunity for our members from the public, which we do have a few on Zoom, so welcome. For the members of the public to address the board for any items that are not on the agenda. And just to be very clear that anything that's brought up here can't be discussed for action by the board that are not on the agenda per the Brown Act. So I'll open it up if anyone in the audience has any comments. And I do see a hand up from one of our members of the community.
Hello.
All right, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. This is Adele McGrath. I had sent an email and I wasn't sure if this was the time or if we're in section 6 since we had written comments.
I think doing it now would be appropriate. I think the written comments typically need to come a little earlier for them to get into the board packet and included. So if you could do it now, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, the written comments were about a month and a half ago. I had just missed the last meeting. So, but it was in regards to our enclosure and the progress for it. Right now, our gas is currently turned off and we have our enclosure built with the exception of waiting on the louver. I talked to our contractor today and he says that within the next 2 weeks, he'll have it. So I was wanting to see if we can get our gas turned back on in the meantime.
Okay. Thank you for the comment, and I apologize if you were referring to the emails we sent last month. I did see an email that you sent to us yesterday as well, so I was misunderstanding your intent on that. I believe the general manager has been in touch with you or had been previously, and I would just say, ask Eric if you can please be in touch with Adele to make sure that we're following our procedures as for the ordinances that we have and address her questions, please.
Okay, and I did do a email a couple of weeks ago to see if it was possible, but And because right now, before it gets cold, I don't want to have any more pipes broken, and we would keep it clear if it snowed. But I mean, the next 2 weeks, I don't think we have to worry about that part.
Understood. I'll ask the general manager to promptly respond to make sure that if there was any missed emails, we apologize as a group, but I would ask, thank you for giving your comment, and we'll follow appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any other comments from the public on non-agenda items for today? Okay. I don't see any. Eric, do you?
Do not.
Okay, I'm going to close item 5 then and move on to item 6. Similar to what I just said a moment ago, this is usually in reference to emails that are put into the board packet that are provided a week or so in advance of our board meetings. I did not see any in the packet. Okay. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 7, the adoption of the consent calendar. I will accept a motion to adopt the consent calendar or discussion on it.
Thornbrook, so moved.
Okay.
Schroeder, second.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Sure. Epstein,
Aye.
Indrachanda,
Aye.
Schroeder. Aye. Tucker,
Aye.
Thornbrook, aye. It's unanimous.
All right, thank you, everyone. Agenda item 8 is the items brought forward, which we do not have any. So we will move on past agenda item number 8 and move on to number 9. Is that
H.
oh man,
You told me you had them for me.
Consent items.
I had it. It's
8 is separate consent items.
no page number. I did it for all the ones because I thought you would anyway. It's
Oh.
37.
Page 37, item number 9.
Sorry.
It's all right.
So 198.
It's your first test. You're doing great.
Finances.
You're doing great.
I have all the other ones, but I skipped that one. All right. So finances. I'll pass it over to General Manager.
Sure. So so you'll notice that both June and July are in the board packet. This overview of budget variances covers this fiscal year. So this is strictly related to July financials. So
Month 1.
yeah, month 1 of the fiscal year, correct. So I would just ask if there's any questions about the budget variances listed here, or
I mean, finance committee looked at this, and the big items in the balance sheet where budget is varying from actuals is primarily prep for an RUS payment, and then some of the anomalies behind putting our capital into 5-star, which is interest bearing. So you'll see some figures that are off between budget and actuals in the balance sheet, and those are the 2 items that cause most of that.
Any other questions from the public? Any other board member comments?
questions on the specific sheets, June or July?
Sheets,
Happy to
anyone?
answer either of them. Chris, you usually have 1 or 2.
Oh, that's just performative.
But I'm happy to answer them if you do. So no, none this time.
Not this time, no.
And maybe I'll just skip down to cash flow.
Cash flow.
Maybe because I have 2 months in here. That's why.
Page 69.
Almost got there. There we go.
69.
All right. So as John mentioned, we did have a $2,099,000 payment to RUS, which I did do in the end of September. I think I did it on the 27th. So that payment has been processed. That was a planned, not only principal and interest, but we did pay off a very large loan for just shy of 1.4 million. So that $2 million payment did occur. We did transfer money in from reserves. You could see that moving in September as planned. And so that's what that was, if anyone is scared by the precipitous $2 million drop, but we also paid off a loan. So I'm pretty happy with that.
This is page 69 cash
Yes,
flow.
sir.
And the 2 million payment, under what column do we see that? July 24, I did not see it.
So you'll see the reserve fund balance. So this is our cash flow. So this is where our cash goes. This isn't, you won't see the payment here, but you see the movements that were part of the payment. So you'll see a transfer in from reserve of 2 million. You'll see a transfer out of 2 million, and then our reserves went down because we paid it. Basically, that money went away. It shows up back in the other sheets. Well, it'll show up in the
Okay,
September
that's
sheets
the
when we
2
do it.
million in September.
Correct.
Okay, I see it now, excuse me.
Yeah, it was 2,099,000 and some change, so we guesstimated at 2 million. We weren't off that far. We're off less than 5%, but that's within budget and within what we expected, and it was part of the anticipated or part of the plan of what we did in the budget assumptions adopted by the board. So
And it's good to pay off debt.
it is good to pay off debt. Yes, yes, yes. Because if we rolled it, our interest would not be as good as they think. That one had a 1.35%, and we would have probably gone up to a 5.5.
Our outstanding balance on that Rust loan is it
The
under
Rust
50?
loans plural, we have,
Yeah,
originally we had about
yeah.
35 loans. We paid off a few, so we're down to about
Under
30-ish
50?
loans. And oh yeah, we're under 50 now. Yes, with this payoff, we are under 50 for sure. I think we're probably nosing in. I think we're below 48 even right now.
Reading Sheriff, we spoke in
Yes.
Whitford's today.
Yes.
I asked you about the fire.
Yeah. Oh, but I got pulled over for a ticket.
Nope,
All
eating a sandwich while walking.
All right, okay,
right.
anything else on financials?
I don't have anything unless there's any questions.
Any other public questions? I don't see
I have
anything.
to close them because it's so wide and open them up, but I see none.
Any other board comments? Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 9B, which is on page 70 of the board packet.
Right, so as a result of moving all this money around, we still have money in LAIF. Because we're getting the same interest at 5 Star, so there was no calamitous reason to have to move it right away, but we should move it out because we've always considered the money in LAIF Electric's money. It's just how we consider it, so moving this back to 5 Star is gonna be a better way. We can keep our LAIF account with a zero balance. But in doing all that, we found out that the last resolution was from 1985, and the only authorized signatory is the treasurer. And so that's pretty outdated. That doesn't go with our current policies that we've adopted for financials and signatures. It's always the president, the treasurer, the GM, and the AGM. That's how it's been for everything we do now, the bank accounts, loans, etc. So this just catches up a almost 40-year-old resolution with current positions, current parties and positions. This will roll to the successor positions regardless of who owns it. So it doesn't matter who's president, the president will always be able to sign. They just want to know this is a LAIF template resolution, so they want the current name of the current people sitting in these seats. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the public before we have board comments?
Sure. Sorry, let me pull them back up.
I don't see any.
I don't see any either.
Any board members have questions or discussion on this topic?
Gotta do it.
Could you simply restate the questions whether to move money to 5 Star?
No.
This is
Who's the
just
signatory?
to change
Oh,
the signatories
signatories,
on
yeah,
that.
okay, right.
Functionally, that is a different conversation. That would be a different topic. This is functionally who can sign to do any transfers out of LAIF.
And the answer, the resolution there is then that
President, treasurer, general manager,
okay,
and AGM.
whereas in the past, for the last 40 years, it's been just the treasurer.
Correct.
Okay,
And as it says in bold letters in the middle of the screen, or their successors in office, which is what Eric was saying, is that even though Bob's name is on here as president, for example, or whomever's, or the GMs or assistant GMs or treasurers,
got
if
it.
those are to change, it's the title, not the name.
Okay.
Okay, with no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adopt resolution 24-01.
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Tucker.
Tucker, 3 seconds. Roll call vote, please, Peter.
Sure. Epstein,
Aye.
Rotunda,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
Norberg, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 9C on page 72. Eric?
Yes, so just a little background, because Doug's been brought up to speed on it through personnel, but Chris, you've never gone through this before, so
There's no preamble on this one in the or explanation.
that's correct. Page 72 is where we start.
Got it.
So we started doing salary surveys, internal salary surveys about every 2 years to make sure we're remaining competitive with like agencies. And since there's no one really like us, this first page, we created a formula to basically make an apples to apples comparison. And so the things we consider when looking at other public agencies is how many employees do they have? And then we weight that based on how many they have versus us. What is their number of what's their population and or customers? So we weight it based on that. What's their elevation? Because that is a consideration for how we provide service. So someone at sea levels, for example, Imperial Irrigation District, which is in this comparison, is definitely or they're at 18 foot, almost sea level, is different than us at 7,700. And then the nearest city with a population greater than 100,000 in miles, because that is also, a lot of people live in rural areas and are willing to commute if it's a 45-minute commute, for example. So we're not in that situation. So all that being said, if you get to the very last column, you can see what a comparable is. And I would, just anecdotally, I think everybody would think Mammoth is going to be just like us, and they indeed come in at a 0.95, which is one of the closest to us. So anecdotally, it also works with the formula. So with that said, that's how we weight the salaries of sister agencies. Any questions on the weighting?
Yeah, I don't want to challenge it, but just to kind of rock it a bit, if you go down 15 spots to Imperial, for example, they have way more employees, they have way more population. So 0.8 or the
0.71. 0.71.
Well, I know I'm just looking at under employees 0.8 or under population 0.6. That just means that they're about as far away as you can be from Kirkwood in that regard, employees,
right,
population, and that dings them from a 1.0, which would be a perfect match. They drop down to a 0.8. No one drops further than that.
0.71.
And okay, and just in one column. And then you take all of those, the 0.8, the 0.7, etc., and you average them out.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And you conclude that Mammoth is closest.
Yeah. And the reason we use Imperial Irrigation District is because they are one of the few municipal agencies that provide electricity. There's not a lot of us out there. So we need them to look at linemen, groundmen, that sort of position.
Because most of these people do water power or water waste,
a lot
but not
of water and wastewater. Electricity is very uncommon.
Really?
Yeah, I think there's 53 statewide, Brandy, 43, somewhere in that range that do power.
And there's no correlation with size like LA, San Francisco.
LA Department of Water and Power.
But if you go to the big city utilities, do they tend to do them all? I thought not.
Some do. San Francisco Water and Power does. LA Department of Water and Power does. San Diego does not. Oakland does not. So it just depends on where.
SFPUC does it both. I didn't know that.
It's actually Department of Power and Water. So it's the SFPUC is a different entity.
They oversee. They're the
wholesale. They're the wholesale, not the retail.
The Hetchetchy Tuolumne, you're right, wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So all that being said, we then analyzed it for all the positions we had. And so you can see which positions are currently low and high. And so what we recommend is that we adjust everybody. So people that aren't within their salary range, that we adjust them to the low point of the new salary survey salary range, retroactive to July 1st, which is what we've always done historically. And so there's two positions that this impacts. I believe three positions this impacts, and one is currently vacant. The other three, and we'll talk about this later, are the alternate electric propane, and Brandy will talk on that when we get to that topic. So you can ignore the last three that are red. That'll come up in a later topic. We're not proposing anything specific to those three right now, and we'll explain why later. But for the other three, we'd like to adjust the salaries and salary ranges.
And do you think that's going to assist recruiting the admin manager?
I think it will help, yes.
Yeah, so the background of that is we haven't gotten a lot of response to posting the ad. for administrative managers, so already I think there was a thought that our salary range was too low. So this kind of backs that up.
How long has that role been empty at PUD?
Since a month today.
It's Tommy.
Oh, Tommy's left, is it?
Yeah.
Tommy's not coming back.
No, he resigned.
I see. I didn't know that. Okay. So that's a finance role, essentially administrative.
Yes.
I can read admin manager to mean also head of
It's
finance.
finance as well.
Okay. And so just to walk through that one example, our current range or offer is what?
So if you look in the first column, that's the current range. And if you look at, or the first
Range
and
is
second
118 to
column,
113.
and then if you look at the third and fourth column, that's the proposed range.
Mammoth would be,
You'd have to go specifically to that sheet
The
if you want
sheet,
to.
that's a sheet below.
okay,
has
but basically
position.
Mammoth, and using that and the whole analysis informs us that utilities like us are 110 to 137.
Correct.
Ergo, and there's the difference. And so we're proposing that be our new range.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that's again weighted.
And they're weighted in with the highest and the lowest tossed out. We throw out the outliers in every single one. So if you go to the other page, just for example of a specific, no, let's not do Rick because he's here. Let's do administrative manager. But if you want to see, so you can see at the very bottom here, you can see the average salary, high, low, and then you see the average salary outliers removed. It wasn't a significant difference.
Oh, okay, so you really are grabbing all of them on this list, not just
Yeah,
Mammoth.
if you wanted to
That's
look
really
at
good.
Mammoth pays 140 to 150.
Okay, good.
That's,
I understand now. Thank you.
So there's a lot of formulas in this one. Doug would probably enjoy playing with it. So
All right,
I
Um,
just, if I can, I just want to add that personnel has reviewed this with Eric and worked with him on this, and we recommend proceeding with the changes.
thank you.
One last methodology question. How do you decide which utilities go on the list and which to exclude? They had-
basically utilities that are the same or similar in terms of services provided to
So
the
if they're
public.
really big cities, or if they just do one or two utilities.
I don't do, there's very few, and you can see that from up above. There's very few cities that I use. I only use ones, basically I try to use ones that are at high elevations. Because other cities are just not analogous. And then counties, I just picked rural counties that are nearby.
Okay, thanks for explaining. There's about 30 of them.
Eric, do you need a vote?
Yeah, we probably need a motion and a
Motion to-
vote to adjust the salary ranges as recommended by staff and personnel. As contained on page 73.
I'll entertain a motion to proceed with what Eric just said, which is to increase salary ranges according to page 73.
This is Bob. I move we adopt the changes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Epstein,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Tucker,
I
Norbert abstain.
Thank you.
Give me
All
the
right.
page number for the next one, Doug.
There is no page number.
You
on
want to
this?
give me the page number?
I said there is not one, I think, right?
I'll just page.
Go to
down.
page 95,
So that's looking.
and then I don't believe there is a.
There's page 95. That's the one I was looking for. Is that?
Our next topic is employee family housing, and so I'm
yes.
saying for that
water
topic,
wastewater.
Right, there is no page number. You're correct.
So 9D, please.
It's before wastewater then.
Yes.
There is no
There is
page
no page for it.
for this.
It's just a
agenda
verbal
topic.
from what personnel discussed.
So this is a
So we-
personnel topic. Go ahead.
So currently, everyone knows we provide employee housing. It's not conducive the way it's set up and just the general atmosphere for familial housing. So recommendation, talking with Brandy, Rick, and myself, and then ultimately with personnel, is that we should look for some offsite in the valley housing that would be suitable for families to use that are employees of the district. So, you know, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, that sort of thing. I know we let go of the Meadows unit, but that is not a good unit for a year round. I mean, I know what Dave Waddle's propane bill was for living there year round when he worked for us at that Meadows unit, and it would be cost prohibitive for a family to live there. So I'm
What
not
does
regretting.
off-site in Valley mean?
I mean, a condo or something in
Kirkwood.
Valley that the district would own and set aside specifically for familial housing.
Not Carson Valley.
No, I mean this valley, yes. And so,
Then that would be opposed as opposed to, Lava Rock or buying a lot maybe, or building new Lava Rock 2 or something like that.
Yeah. we've looked at the other options, which are building Lava Rock 2, which is cost prohibitive, probably in the 5 million range. We looked at setting some very specific rules to protect families with young children. If they were to be in Lava Rock, there's some problems with that with district council, some things we can and can't do, even though logically they make sense. And so the third option would be to start looking for something that's suitable for familial housing for district employees. And
Is the
so,
backdrop for all this that employee housing is a barrier to hiring and retaining
yes,
employees, right?
absolutely.
Um,
And in the winter, as we all know, some people can't get up or get home. So
so that's temporary, or I guess emergency or snowstorm housing, but
I don't think we're talking about snowstorm housing here. We're
okay.
talking about
you're talking about permanent housing.
permanent housing where we would buy a unit that someone would live in, just as if it was a unit that we would give them in Lava Rock.
I didn't prepare on this item at all. I don't know if I missed something. I'm sorry. Is there a decision that we're going to be voting on this item?
Personnel recommends that staff start looking for something suitable. And that's what we would ask the board to
Oh,
concur with, and that we do that we look for that. And then if we were to find something, to bring it back to the board for their consideration.
And I will also say, I mean, there is a current need here. This isn't a hypothetical
Correct.
of like, in the future, it would be great if we had family housing available for KMPUD staff. We have a situation right now where this could fulfill a need that would benefit us as a utility district to service a family.
If
And
you
so-
think we have the time now, could we just get a quick recap of employee housing, what we currently have, if we have the time for a short?
Sure. We have, so we have 8 units, 4 single bedroom, 4 double bedroom. And they are currently ostensibly basically full at this point.
8 units. And where are they?
Right there,
Lava Rock.
Okay, right next, okay, I
Right
know
next.
those.
right next door. Yep.
And that goes by the name of Lava Rock.
And they also own a unit in Sun Meadows, a 1-bedroom unit in Sun Meadows.
What Eric is saying is that we used to own a unit in the Meadows, but we had sold that 2 years ago, I think.
I believe that's right.
Something
2 or
like
3.
that.
And
And so
that's the one with the high propane.
that's what we use, which is the high propane. And so again, our options to, if we want to, do we want to support a family in a way that's different than saying going to Lava Rock and no adjustments? And as Eric said, go to Lava Rock and have some facilitated resident advisor situation type of thing. We could buy an empty lot somewhere in Kirkwood, build our own structure. We could build an entirety of Lava Rock 2. We could go find a home somewhere. We could buy a condo somewhere. And after all of those options, at the personnel, we concurred with staff recommendation, which is to start looking for condo.
I favor looking at it, but I'm just, I'm not very informed. As you drive up right here from the bins, the dumpster bins, on the right-hand side is, what is that called? It seems to be.
Renwick. That's
Renwick.
That's Vale Housing. Renwick.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so what is Vale, KMR housing, in the valley? Do they have a lot? If we have 8, do they have 80, or how many units?
I
do they
don't know
have?
how many they have, but they have quite a bit. They have what used to be called Animal House, now called the
Yeah,
Quad.
yeah.
They have Renwick.
Pine Lodge.
And
which
Pine.
has been awesome.
Yeah.
So they have dozens of units, that they probably use only seasonal, like less than 6 months a year,
Correct.
and stand empty otherwise.
I think they have some year-round employees, but
Do they?
I know, or my understanding, and I can be corrected by someone on here if they wanted, they do not allow family housing in Vale units.
Okay.
The other thing that we need to talk about is potentially obtaining some deed restricted housing. And, TriTech hasn't been very aggressive in enforcing the deed restrictions.
No.
What is deed restricted housing?
So every HOA adopts CCNRs and they're all different. All the deed restrictions are different. Not, well, I mean, in a particular HOA, they're the same, but they vary from unit to unit. What I can tell you is the Sentinels West that's being built now, my understanding is they are restricting a bedroom in each of the three triplexes. So not the whole unit, just a bedroom. I'm not sure how that works, how someone tracks that, but that is what they're doing with their deed restrictions. And the deed restrictions vary. So deed restrictions in Meadowstone say during the winter, it has to be your primary place of work. Well, with remote work now, anybody could qualify for employee housing, but I don't know how those are the two I know how they're written. I don't know how Timber Creek Townhomes is written. My guess is it's going to be dumped off on the future units that have yet to be built, but I don't know that. So everything's it's a little bit wonky. Peter's absolutely right. No one's watching it. No one's enforcing it.
When we say deed, is it you mentioned TriTech, that they basically green light a building project with the provision that the developer allocate
Correct.
affordable or employee housing.
Yes.
I see.
Yep.
Okay.
And one of the
Doug, there is one question from the audience, just so you know.
I saw that, Bob. Thank you. I was just going to interrupt you, Peter, to go to the audience and make sure we get an audience question. Thanks, Bob.
Carolyn, do you want to unmute?
I just want to remind you that the Meadows put in all new boilers and the propane should go way down. You might still want to, at least look at it.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me of that, Carolyn. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other audience comments or hands up. Is there any other board discussion or questions or comments?
Is there a estimate of cost and what would be the source of funds?
So the source of funds would be reserves spread across G&A, just like all employee housing is. Or we could use property tax too, if we wanted to do that. We'll be allocating property tax
Or debt.
in November, or debt or a loan, which is what we did for the last two we purchased. And you'll recall when we sold Meadows, we took a large chunk of that cash and paid off the principal against Sun Meadows. So we did have indebtedness there. We do have a mechanism with Five Star Bank to do that as well. If basically we've been looking, Brandy and Rick and I have been looking at recently sold and for sales, which there are not many. I know Meadowstone 2-bedroom 1-bath just sold for $639. Snowcrest went for like $750. There's a 1-bedroom 1-bath for how much is that one? $539. So to answer your question, my guess is somewhere north of 5, somewhere south of 8.
Can I just maybe clear this conversation today is not authorizing a dollar amount. This is not authorizing anything or like the debt mechanism or funding. This is just authorized to look for something in the condo style.
Well,
as
the numbers help.
No, they do.
If you want to go look.
Fair enough. But I want to be clear that
Looking for a $6 million property, don't look.
I mean, if you look, but then when he comes back with 6 million, we'll say no.
Well,
No, but of
or you
course,
could save the hassle.
save the hassle. No. I just make very clear that when you vote today, you're not authorizing any number that he just said. That was my point.
I'll ask one more question. It might be self-evident, but is there any anecdotal evidence just to illustrate the demand for this? Like, we have 8 units, they're sold out, they're filled. We have a long list of people who would love to sign up and have housing, or maybe we've lost a higher.
It fluctuates. Right now, we are full with requests pending.
Full with people requesting.
Correct.
And we are full doubled up in the snow removal. when we're
Correct.
housing. So 2 people per bedroom.
Is there a type of employee, a category employee? We're not talking top management here. I assume we're also not talking part-time snow removal people. Maybe we are. Or is it?
It's all across the board.
Okay,
It's all across. We have employees from every strata and employee housing.
no further questions.
And I mean, just let me fill in a small detail. I think of. I don't think you asked the exact question, but something I was thinking about is, suppose we have this unit and it, goes unfilled for a few minutes. I mean, it is an asset and it can get resold. So, even if we do not need to use it, I mean, obviously you can't flip it in a second, but there is hopefully a maturing asset that grows in value as well. So keep that in mind too.
Yep.
Yeah, we've made money every time we bought and sold, even before I was here and since I've been.
That's how we built Lava Rock, was giving people the option to buy out their deed restrictions. And we took that was a basis
Oh,
for
that's
building
cool.
Lava. It worked out really well.
Yeah.
But that in those days, there were units happening. I was,
Yeah,
before the boom, it crashed.
Okay.
And now prices have gone way up. I mean, at one point we looked at buying the chicken feather house, and which actually would have been pretty good.
Mhm. Yeah, we did look at that half of that duplex.
Yeah, half of that duplex.
But yeah. It was-
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and say, there's no other discussion, then I'd entertain a motion to authorize staff to investigate a condo styled unit for family housing for the KMPUD.
Dornbrook so moved.
Okay,
Seconded.
Peter, roll call vote, please, Peter?
Sure.
If I could just interrupt, if we did find a single family residential at a reasonable price, which is probably unlikely, could we look at that too?
You want to
just a
also
condo-
authorize a number as well?
No, let me bring back numbers so there's no sticker shock. But I'm just saying, if I found a single family for 800,000, would the board consider that? Because you said condo style. I just want to make sure. we can look-
So you're talking about units, I said condo, you're saying like, just a unit of a
Just
affordable.
residential housing.
Let me restate my motion then.
Yeah, keep it general.
We'll keep it general. So I'll entertain a motion to authorize staff to look into family style housing inside the Kirkwood Valley to support KMPD staff.
Dornbrook moved.
All right,
Seconded.
second, and a roll call vote, please, Peter.
Sure. Epstein,
Aye.
Rotunda,
Aye.
Schroeder, Tucker,
Aye.
Dornbrook, aye. It's unanimous.
All right, thank you very much. Move on to agenda item 9E. This is on page 95 of the packet. I will welcome our operations manager, Benson. Randy?
Good afternoon. So this agenda item is the potential recombining of water, wastewater, solid waste departments. Little history back prior to 2022, it was a single department, similar to how electric propane is a single department. We had some various issues, personnel issues, we had staff shortages, we were having trouble hiring people. And what we recommended at the time was to split the department into two departments, two sets of duties. Water and solid waste being one, wastewater being the other. We did this, the board agreed, and in February of 22, we did this. Everybody reported to me, which had some challenges. In December of 23, the personnel committee considered and eventually recommended that we recruit internally for a water wastewater project manager to head the department, to have everyone in water, wastewater, solid waste report to this person who reports to the operations manager. We received multiple applications. We selected a candidate who is working out well. It seems to be working good over there. And we have since hired a new hire to fill a operator one position in the department. And that was recent. That was just September 16th. So what we're asking here is that if the board concurs, we recombine everything back into a single department. The only change would be that the titles of our two operator threes, one currently is water, one currently is wastewater. Their title be water, wastewater operator three. And then everyone reporting to the same organizational lead that we have right now. Any questions?
So there's no add or decrease in headcount?
Nope.
Any change to compensation?
No.
Okay, thanks.
What is the 1 and the 3? And I don't see a 2.
It's the level of operator. We don't currently have a 2 in our structure, but if the 1, for example, suddenly got his certifications, he would be promoted to a 2 in recognition of the additional qualifications he obtained.
I see.
Actually, it starts with OITs. I mean, you could put that in the chart too. I mean, if you wanted to. You have to pass a test, and then you have to have a certain amount of on job. It's like a year, I think,
Yeah.
for each level.
Okay, I don't see any public comment here either. Personnel did review this and concurs. Any other board discussion? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to authorize staff to reorganize the wastewater, and solid waste department as advised in this report. I will
This
motion.
is Bob, I so move.
Okay.
I'll second then.
All right. Roll call vote, Peter?
So you moved?
I moved. Yep.
Okay. Epstein,
Aye.
Midrotanda,
Aye.
Schroeder, Tucker,
Aye.
Nuremberg, aye.
Thank you. Randy, you're here for the next one as well, so let's move on to 9F.
Right, so this is, as Eric mentioned earlier, talking about the electric propane alternate ranges that you saw in the salary survey. What we noticed in our recent salary survey was that first, the electric propane operator positions, which is an operator two and an electrician, have
Sorry about that. Don't stop.
All right.
Show them how to mute it.
I think you're on purpose. This is all sorts of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is that little thing, yeah,
This,
and then hit focus,
okay.
and then hit for, yeah, you just survive. There you go. All right.
okay. So
Proceed.
we looked at comparable utilities that offer retail electric service, and our operator positions are lower than those ranges. The second thing we noticed is our operator positions are also lower than comparable positions in our own internal water wastewater department. And that is in large part because we've started this process of doing a salary survey, and we've had a lot of turnover in water wastewater where we haven't seen that same amount of turnover in these two positions. So when Eric did the salary survey, he focused on trying to find positions at municipalities providing retail electric service to get us some more comparable positions. As we move forward and we have vacancies in this department, we feel this is important so that we can hire in qualified people. They were, if you took a look at that, they're quite a bit higher than what we are currently paying in our salaries. So what we are proposing to do here is to move the salary positions for our electrician and our electric propane operator up to match, to be more on par with the water wastewater positions in our own organization. And over the course of some years, start moving towards comparable utilities. So specifically here, what we're recommending is that we bump the salary for each of these two positions, $6,240 a year. The total annual impact financially, including benefits, is about $14,000 a year. And I would be happy to answer any questions there.
I think that maybe the second component of that, what she touched on, we talked about the alternate range briefly, and that's again bringing us more in parity with what the market is doing and what we're going to have to compete with should we have vacancies. So the second component of this, which personnel concurred with as well, in addition to the salary increase, is to start sliding up the salary ranges over about a 5-year period so we can start matching other retail electric municipality providers.
Yes, thank
So
you.
you're proposing to do this increase step by step gradual.
So there's 2 steps. One is an immediate salary increase, again, retroactive to July 1st. That's step 1. Step 2 is over the next 5 years, move the salary range based on the alternate electric propane salary survey we did, which was listed in there. Start moving the range. And should anyone ever, and this is a standing direction from the board, should anyone ever fall below the minimum of any range, they are automatically brought up to that every July 1st, and that happens occasionally.
And just to add in personnel, we did discuss there is no immediate opening in this department, but we do think that within the next, 5 to 7 years, we could easily see some retirement potential there. So we want to put ourselves in a good position to fill these positions if they open up.
If it's appropriate, can I ask the name? Who are the operator two? Maybe it's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate.
Okay.
Okay,
I just want to add in from personnel, to be fair to the employees, just because they're been working here for a while doesn't mean they shouldn't be in a salary that matches if they were just hired in the same person, that they should be maintain a proper level, and these two are below where they should be.
see no comments from the public or hands up. Is there any other board comments or discussion? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to follow the staff recommendation here to have the electrician and electric propane operator 2 salaries increased by $6,240 per year. Effective July 1st.
I'll move to approve that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please, Peter.
Epstein,
Aye.
Minutaronda,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye, I'm moving out of the sun.
Sunbrook, aye.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 9F, performance reporting and aquifer levels.
That's me too. All right, so for this month's packet, we have July and August numbers. And as you can see in electric generation, we are running at about a 15% unidentified system loss. Annually, we shoot for 12%. It's not at all unusual to see higher percentages of losses in the summertime because we're selling less units of electricity. So looking at July and August, this looks very normal for the start of the year. In propane, similarly, we see, maybe not similarly. This is actually pretty steady for propane. We show a 0% loss in July, a slight negative, and a 3% loss in August. So 1% for year to date is pretty normal. We do see some fluctuations, positive and negative losses in propane due to temperature and pressure fluctuations. So looking at this for July and August, I also see a normal start to the year. Any questions on either of those before we move back to water or wastewater? Okay. Taking a look at water, we do have slightly higher than expected losses in July and August for water. This does not include the water that's being used for construction meters in the valley right now. So there is a substantial metered component that we'll get at the end of construction season when everybody closes out their hydrant meter accounts. I do expect these losses to go down during the fall months. October 15th is typically the end of construction season for all underground utilities. And then November 1st is when we pull all the hydrant meters because it starts getting too cold. And then lastly, we've got wastewater treatment. You can see here, unidentified, unmetered usage. Now this is I&I, extra water coming into the system. 25% in July, 11% in August. I will note that we had the influent meter at the plant replaced. We had a problem with that meter. It was replaced as part of our current project at the wastewater plant. So going forward, I am more confident in our numbers. This 25% in July, with as dry as it was, seems a little high to me. But we will continue to watch that going forward to ensure that we're on stable ground there.
When you say as dry as it was, you're referring to snow melt.
Rain, yeah.
And so July, we had perhaps less snow melt flowing, maybe because it had all flowed in prior months.
Exactly.
And given that 25% super high, okay.
It does seem, it's not, we've certainly had Julys that were higher than this before, but we had a pretty normal snow year and a
Right.
pretty normal snow melt year.
Right.
So we weren't seeing large piles of snow melting in July still.
A constant thought and concern for us. We continue to take a look at it.
We will, and we continue to work on projects out in the valleys, such as manhole repairs, the sewer project that we're going to talk about later, but various things out in the system to try to make sure we're collecting as little water as possible.
Any comments from the public? I don't see any hands.
Nope.
Okay. Any other board questions or comments for Brandy? Okay. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brandy. We're going to move now on to the biannual customer survey. It's on page 100. As a reminder, this is a survey we send every 2 years, and we have the results in. It was sent, I guess, in September, if I remember correctly. And we have some
October
results.
1st.
October 1st. So Eric, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I've included the 2024 survey results as well as the 2022 survey results. So hopefully you're able to compare those. Generally, everything was roughly the same, with the exception of snow removal. Obviously, the 706 or 709 inch winter 2 winters ago left quite a few people displeased and not unreasonably so. So that was reflected in the survey. But everything else is more or less held steady. One thing I would note that was an interesting one was the change of people who want to meet in person at board meetings. Before it was around 60% people wanted to meet, and it dropped precipitously. Most people, as you can see here, 83% prefer to do it by Zoom now. So I think everybody's, 2 years ago, it was a new technology. People weren't terribly comfortable with it. But I think that's a big change. And I think it's good that we provide this format for our customers because it seems to be an easy way for them to participate, especially as a vacation home resort. So other than that, I think it tracked pretty similar from last year. Also talking with Doug, we think it'd be good to take the last 3 surveys and track the same questions and see where the numbers were, and then keep doing that going forward as well. And he's offered to help with that, which I appreciate.
Yeah. And I just the larger context for everyone is that we've moved to a more standardized template for these questions. So having it longitudinally is a feature. And so being able to easily see time series charts of, as Eric said, the Zoom participation number changing would be, I think, more useful to see in time series charts now that we have more than a couple of data points. I have a couple of thoughts, but I'm going to first open up to the public. I don't see any comments there. So any board comments? I had a couple of thoughts just in terms of where we could go from here. And I can go first if anyone wants me to, but I was gonna say, I think I'm first to say thank you to the community for taking the time to respond. I think we got a number of very helpful handwritten comments beyond just the numerical choices that were made that I think can really help guide us to improve as a district. And these sorts of surveys and pieces of feedback are how we can often improve. So it's very great that our community stepped up and took the time to do this. So I just want to start with that acknowledgement. The second is from the communications committee perspective, which I'm happily the chair of and work with Chris on. We've taken on an initiative of FAQ documents, which we recognized, I think, coming out of especially the Fire and Emergency Medical Services Temporary Advisory Committee was very successful. And I think what I saw in here were a lot of questions that reinforce the need for something like that so that we can help point people to an FAQ and say there are a number of items in here that I think we already have included in there. And I think there are some that are not. And I see this as an opportunity for us to then go into detail on all of these questions. So one proposal and thought that I had coming out of this was to ask communications to go and support staff in reviewing these detailed comments and think about how we can include these in some of certainly some of the communications that we're already planning and working on. I think that would be a good way of helping support staff through here so they don't have to do it on their own.
Could you elaborate? Did you say the communications committee?
Yeah, we as a committee would go through this and say, Doug will look through this for fire and emergency medical service comments and say,
Okay.
how can we add that to the FAQ if it wasn't already there? You could take another section. Our other committee members could help there so that we can take this more holistically and try to group in what our common themes are. And maybe that turns into a newsletter post where we communicate some of the things here that are findings, and it's wrapped into, and here are some new FAQs that we've produced. So that's one angle I think that we would want to take. And I think, there are some specific questions, and, I know there are other ways that we could respond to people more generally or specifically. And I don't know, we could do that as well, but that's just one high level thing that I think communications can do to try to encapsulate all of the time that our community has spent to make sure that we're taking all of these comments seriously and addressing them all. So that's one thing I would propose.
Doug, I'd like to add a few things on that. Historically, after we've gotten the results, we've sent out a thank you email to everyone who participates with a link to go and look at them, rather than assuming everyone's going to go through the board packets. I recommend that we would do that as soon to have that available. And then secondly, a fair number of questions are specific to an individual, and I'd be more than happy to take some, work out everyone, but I like calling people. I'd be happy to volunteer among others to contact people where they have an individual item, because I think it's a good way of building rapport and of building good customer relations.
I would happily help you with that too, Bob. And I think it can be all of the above in some ways. We can have the FAQs, the general communications, thank you notes, and also to the extent that we see specific comments that we want to address. And again, for people who identify themselves is who we would be able to work that with. It wouldn't necessarily be for everyone.
Correct. Right.
So just
But a fair number of people it appears that a fair number of people offered their names.
I think it was
So it
about
means
50,
we
if I
could follow
remember.
up.
So yeah, exactly. I think it was about 50. So I think that's a good, for those who we have questions in that subset, maybe Eric, we could work with you on that to get the subset of the 50 that are identifiable and then go through those questions specifically.
Yeah,
And then
I already have a note. I'll send that to you and Bob.
great. And then
Okay.
Chris and I can work on the more general themes and comments and pull that in from a communications meeting. And we'll have this on our next communications agenda for that purpose. Does that sound amenable to all the board members?
Yeah, there's no reason not to just send out a thank you note right away.
Oh, yeah, sorry, and I skipped over that as yes, that was a no-brainer. We'll absolutely do. And can we also do? I hope that we'd also be able to include a link to the packet that includes these results as well in the
I think that's what Bob was saying. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
just the pocket, but yeah.
Tell them the pages.
Right. Like send them to this, pull it out and
Make it easy for them
Make it
to
easy
see the
for them.
results.
yes.
Would it be wise to have a few of our summary comments, as we say thank you and send them the results and the link and so forth, just for us to summarize what we hear them saying, as opposed to just if people read through all these pages and pages of comments.
I would suggest that it's just rather than summarizing what's in here, just say that our process will be to look through things, expand the Q&As, contact people who've given their names for individual responses.
Yeah. And then in future, so in future FAQ updates and newsletter items, we'll be using that
Yeah.
the next few months to summarize and tell the community what we've heard and what we might be doing about some of the things. I guess,
I was just saying, I think basically there are three things that we have as action items. One is we would have communications work on the logistics, pulling this together. Number two is we will respond to specific questions. And number three is we will send a thank you note that says that that's what we're doing. And then that way they'll have the survey results with this. And then I think, Chris, I understand maybe what your point was in that thank you note. Should we highlight a few quotes or something like that potentially? But I think
That'd be helpful.
I think it's more neutral to probably, I don't know, but to just send the results and here's what we're doing as a result of it probably, but I could go either way on that. I would probably
Well,
say let's
I
separate.
like that. I said it, I think several of us have just said the same thing, which is use the FAQs. And newsletter items in the next 3 or 4 months. Just
Yep.
to come back to people with what we're doing about the survey. Otherwise, we're just saying, thanks for the survey. Here's 10 pages of raw data and comments.
Correct.
You may be amused, you may be curious what we're gonna do about it.
No, the thank you note will outline what we will do about it.
Bingo, okay,
So,
that's it.
so I think staff has clear understanding of what to do next, those 3 items.
Yes.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
And whoever wrote the comment about our Marxist communist pricing structure, chapeau, that's very poetic.
All right.
Semi-communist rate plan.
All right, I'm gonna move ahead then.
Well, that is a person that identified themselves and Bob will be calling them.
Oh, really?
Sorry, is there any other comments from the
Yeah.
board?
I
Yes.
think it would be helpful is to have the comments show the rating if that's possible.
Like,
Like when you look at a Yelp rating on a restaurant, you go, oh, they gave them a horrible rating. And then you look and it's like, the restaurant's too expensive, the service was bad,
I see
or
what
I
you're saying.
got food poisoning.
yeah,
And you kind of read the review differently based on those 3 outcomes, And so you could do the same thing for like snow removal, like we ran over their car, or we didn't clear their driveway, or we woke them up too early in the morning,
yeah,
that sort of thing. And then the communications committee and the newsletter seem like they're doing a ton of good. So thanks much to you 2 guys and the committee and staff.
sure.
Some things did come up that seemed like they'd be easy to address, which is who does what at Kirkwood. I mean, it is really.
If I could just jump in there, I don't mean to interrupt, but I was talking to Doug as soon as we got the survey results.
Yeah.
We send out, every new customer gets something called who does what in their new customer intake packet. Every customer got it. I mean, at least in the last 10 years. So maybe you never got one, Chris, but John, you probably didn't. Doug, I know you did. Peter, well, God knows you never did. But
He knows who does what.
But we're going to take that. That is going to be the lead newsletter article. Carrie and I already talked about it. That is the lead newsletter article because of all those comments.
Yeah.
Why'd you tear out the tennis courts? Why can't you fix the potholes? Because it's not our job.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be in there. So we're a step ahead, but yeah,
Like a lot of
definitely.
these things, even if you send it out, people won't read it. So you gotta get it in front of them probably on a regular basis. There are a couple others that were.
So you're-
I thought encourage the use of remote monitoring. I was really shocked that it was so low because like that is a gold mine. I mean, here you are sitting in the Bay Area and you don't know if you got a water leak or is your house being heated and seeing that propane spike every so often. So that'd be a great one to reinforce because it's also a unique value
Yeah,
that we
and
provide.
and for people that have that service, there were direct comments that said thank you for that. So, I mean, there are people who are certainly thankful for it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at a high level, my takeaway of this is that there is, from a communications chair perspective, I will say, I want to make sure that we can get this information out there and it's just repeat and use the newsletter and as I think Chris gave a really good point to the committee recently of like highlighting which things are like redundant, recurring things separate from other like breaking news. And I think that's a good thing. We have to get better at reinforcing things because people forget, people don't read
Well,
them.
first of all, I think the newsletters are doing a great job. I was just picking out ones that seemed
Yeah,
particularly kind of like easy to solve and very prevalent. And the other one is more of a policy one, so maybe it doesn't belong here, but the snow removal reservation came up quite a bit. And it does seem like if someone's standing in their driveway with a lot of tire tracks going in and out, it ought to override the list.
It does.
Does it?
It does. Our operators, if they see
So-
someone there, they will hit them even if they're not on the residency
well,
list.
this is again, FAQs, this is communications. And I think this is where I think our job is to continue to reinforce, I think, a lot of the things.
Yeah. It's like with who does what, I know that because I'm on this board, but like, I didn't know that. So,
Sure.
and I think I've been passed up in past years too.
Yeah, I mean,
So I don't think that was always
Every
true.
single person has been passed up at one time or another. It's not out of spite. It's not,
It
it's
might have been.
For you, maybe, I don't know.
depends on what you did to my operators, I guess. But our operators, the residency list is a good, they get it every morning. It's a good set for them to look at, but they also use their common sense. And if they see lights on or see someone out there or footprints in the snow, they will generally hit those people.
Okay, well, that'd be good to know.
All right, those are good comments.
And I think that's already in the snow removal FAQ. I'm almost certain that's one of the things we've already answered.
I just took note. We'll double check it, but I
I
vaguely.
haven't thought about snow in a while.
Okay, so that, I mean, I think
Yeah.
functionally there are two, so we have the three items of follow-up, which are I'll say them again, the thank you email, the specific customer outreach, and the communications committee taking this on. Then I think there are two board process things that I heard. One was giving a longitudinal chart, time series, and then I think what John said there about having comments tied with what was their score rating, if it's available in SurveyMonkey easily or something like that.
So let me just hop in there. Yes, it's available. It's in a spreadsheet format, so it's very cumbersome, but we could make that available. Even I, who love spreadsheets, looked at that one. No.
Yeah.
The only thing I use it for is the random ID, checking that to make sure no one's double dipping. And we only had a couple this time. But I can definitely give that raw data next time when we do the survey, but it'll be very hard for someone to read, but we do have it available. And I don't know an easy way to make it a good format. Maybe.
I'd say between now and 2 years from now, I imagine we'll be able to do that technology wise. I mean, that's something
Yeah,
that
that's certainly available. And John, if you want it, I just haven't.
No, I'm not gonna go back into it. It's
Okay.
just-
No, I think
I
this
got
is,
a million comments and
yeah,
like I said, I think most people zero in on what are the bad ones, what are the good ones, and then you kind of investigate from there.
My favorite, I will say, my favorite ones, and there was quite a few of these, over 20. You should do this in the newsletter. For example, you should have an article about, you should tell us when the green waste bins are coming. That was in the newsletter. So I went and checked their rating. I read it thoroughly. Or someone, or you should tell us about energy rebate programs specific to the district. I read the newsletter thoroughly. We just did that 2 months ago. So it is helpful to look at that. I understand why you want to look at it, because when I see it, I'm like, okay, how often do they read the newsletter? Thoroughly. Well, hold on now. So,
so yeah, it's good feedback. So, and then I think your other general feedback, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here, and I would say, in my opinion, similar to that, it's like reinforcing it and just getting it out there, having it in different formats. I saw a lot of comments about social media, which we can always think about and address in a different form. But like, we're gonna have it in FAQs, we have it in newsletters, getting it out there. I think we're going in the right direction, I hope, personally, and on the communication side. So it's just always it's good to hear other feedback and comments. So
this survey will be main topic in our next communications meeting. Doug, is that right?
Yes, it will be in our communications agenda for the next meeting in October. All right, I want to ask if there's any other board comment. Otherwise, we will move ahead to the next agenda item. Okay,
Is there a
it's
page?
nothing. 9I, it's on page 190. Welcome, Chief Ansel.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So what you'll see in the board packet is, for the initial part for the staff report, was actually what was presented back in July to the board, where the board directed staff to develop an internal business plan for the fire department. How can we do it in-house to create staffing, which is our immediate need, of course. The second item was to gauge interest from other fire agencies to provide an external plan on providing staffing or running the department. I began with the special 218 benefit assessment, and the board selected Francisco Associates to do the work. And then finally work on a communication step to develop a flow chart and how to basically communicate out what the board's direction is on after the 218 or during the 218 process. So to answer those questions today, staff is developing an internal fire department business plan. We're still waiting on information from CalPERS. As we mentioned before, the utility company has a CalPERS account that's really designed for general employees, water, wastewater, electric workers. It doesn't have a safety account with CalPERS. So we've reached out to them. We've actually paid just recently a $300 fee for them to do the final portion of the assessment, and hope to get that information back for the November board meeting. So again, staff is working on developing the plan, and and trying to figure out how we could run the department from within. The second item, staff has met with the Amador Fire Protection District and Eastern Alpine County Fire. And to start off with, Amador County has provided, which is in the board packet in the staff report, some potential labor costs with the coverage of 3 personnel, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And the costs were essentially about 1.35 million. And I should note that the proposal that's in the board packet just reflects 1 shift. We would need 3 shifts, and that's how we get from $446,000 to the 1.35 million. Now, I should also stress that this is just preliminary numbers. It does include a 10% administrative fee, which you'll see there for 40,000. But there'll be other associated costs with having an outside agency come in and perform this, i.e. vehicle maintenance, required inspections and equipment inspections for the CBAs, extrication tools, the compressor, ladders. There's a lot of things that we trying to do, but they will require us to do that if they're going to use our equipment. So the 1.35 could creep up to 1.5 million, but I just wanted to give a heads up to the board on that. But the good thing would be if we did sign a contract with the Amador Fire Protection District, we would get personnel that would most likely rotate from our station as well as the other stations in Amador County, which would make our station, even though our call volume is between 120 and 150 calls a year, relatively low for a fire department. People would not get bored. And then if someone needed to get trained and go away to school to get their recertifications, we wouldn't lose that person and incur overtime for that person being gone. They would just rotate people through to ensure that we had the coverage. So there's definitely some benefits that are kind of cost saving, but also in the interest of the volunteers or the firefighters that would be working up here, keep them busy and interested in continuing to work up here. And then for volunteers, if we signed a contract with the Amador Fire Protection District, they would become Amador Fire Protection District employees essentially, or volunteers that we would work through them, but they'd also be able to gain training that we do not currently provide in-house. And they also have the opportunity to work shifts and do different things within Amador County, not just Kirkwood.
Sorry to stop you. Would they be employees or volunteers?
They would be employees of AFPD.
Yeah, so not volunteers.
Non-volunteers.
Okay.
But I would encourage my volunteers, and maybe I misspoke, to participate in that program.
Transition to employee
transition to that status.
But AFPD also has volunteers,
Oh,
so
do they?
if they wanted to just be a volunteer, they would go through AFPD's volunteer program and become an AFPD volunteer.
Exactly. And then finally with Amador Fire Protection, again, they've given us preliminary numbers for the labor, but they would still need to go through their board, which would require more discussion. The board would have to approve a memorandum of understandings or what they call a joint operations agreement. So that is the status on the Amador Fire Protection District discussions. The other side of the coin is Eastern Alpine County Fire, and we met with them and discussed it on a couple of occasions, and they're still considering providing a proposal for staffing or administrative services, but I do not have that at this time. And then finally, the district, as I mentioned before, hired Francisco Associates to do the preliminary portion of the engineering study for the special benefit assessment. Their initial task for this is to assess the benefits received per property. This is needed to determine what portion of the fire assessment fee is assigned for each property. So that work has begun, and as we move forward, Eric and I will set up some appointments and possibly have them present to the board kind of what they found. But right now, I don't have any more than that to report to the board other than that the initial work's begun. Once the board selects a direction in which to proceed and the cost for providing the service, then Francisco Associates can proceed with the rest of the 218 process, accumulating with the written vote by each property with the vote proportionally to the proposed assessed fee for the property. And so that would be the next step, again, with working with Francisco and Associates, and something for the board to consider. And then finally, I would assume that if we had good, clear direction from the board to how to proceed, then the communication plan, the flow chart, as I mentioned before, and as was identified in the July meeting, would begin at the time. And so the only other notable thing I'd like to add today is that we did include the BKS report from the July board meeting that just scopes out all the different possibilities that the board could go with the fire department, whether that's divesting or changing directions or going through a 218. So I just want to bring that information back so you have it. And with that, that concludes my report, unless there's any questions from the board.
Thank you, Rick. Let's see if there are any public comments before opening up to the board. I do not see any hands up. So I'll ask the board if they have any questions or comments. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So county's considering, you're putting numbers together now. We've got most of it done, but it's coming in about that same range. One more district we're waiting to come back. As soon as we get that back, then we can do a formal bid, you guys. But it's looking like it's gonna come in that 1.5, 1.7. It's kind of what it's looking at, so. Right.
You're speaking on behalf of East Alpine County?
Correct.
This is Sheriff Tom Minder, who represents the emergency side of, I guess, Amador County would be your title. What is your title for fire? Alpine County.
I'm administrator for the fire department for Eastern Alpine.
Oh, thank you.
Valley, so.
Yeah.
The chief couldn't make it today, but, he's working on getting the numbers, the formal numbers together. And, as soon as we get those numbers together, we'll get them to you guys so you can evaluate. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Thanks,
coming.
Tom.
Thanks
Thanks for
for
coming.
considering a proposal.
it's it's a long process trying to get the numbers together. We're trying to get some high numbers, some low numbers, and trying to, kind of bid it in there, so. And it's so far, it's looking, it's right around that 1.3, 1.5 right now, for that.
Could you, where is East Alpine? We're West Alpine County, is that fair? I've looked at the voting map, but what is East Alpine?
It's kind of something that the previous chief decided to go with Eastern Alpine Fire. It used to be called just Alpine Fire. He went with an Eastern Alpine Fire because we have our Bear Valley office, which is on the west slope.
Bear Valley's on the west slope
West slope,
and we're on the east slope? Oh,
Yeah, so you guys are kind of in between actually here.
okay.
Chief is considering, taking the eastern side of it off and just go back with, Alpine Fire. Especially if this has to happen, if we end up taking, the county ends up receiving the fire department here, they'll probably go just to regular Alpine County. Fire
Is this the
Department.
only fire department in Alpine County or is there a west or other Alpine fire district?
Just Bear Valley and Eastern Alpine.
Bear Valley has its own fire district.
We're not a district.
Or fire.
Yeah, not a district. It's just Bear Valley Fire Department.
Same thing with here and same thing with Whitford's, Markville, yeah. And formerly done districts, it's never been done, so it's always been just a volunteer fire department, so with a paid chief. So, and then the Bear Valley is a little bit different. My deputies are public safety on that side, so they do both. The firemen and sheriff's deputies. On that side, so they do dual duties.
Thanks for explaining.
And we collect an assessment for that, an annual assessment in Bear Valley. Currently, it's around $725 a year
For homeowner.
per home.
Is there any opportunity to do the dual law enforcement, emergency medical, like you do in Bear Valley and Kirkwood?
I think we're looking at about the same, but it's, a better benefit. You have both. So that's what's nice about Bear Valley is, they take out their turnouts and dip in their thing and they go handle the law enforcement calls. So that's always been an option. I sent that assessment and I'll let people look to Rick and hopefully got to you guys somewhere along the line of how the Bear Valley works, how the assessment works over there.
What's behind your question? I thought that the talks that we've begun are both for fire and emergency medical, or
Well,
just for fire?
That's
Well, this
different.
is also law
This is law
enforcement.
Oh,
enforcement.
law enforcement.
So Bear Valley's had a kind of unique
I see.
situation of having a dual emergency medical law enforcement.
Fire and
Local.
emergency plus,
So when we've had issues come up in Kirkwood where people would say, hey, we want local law enforcement, right? Like they have in Bear Valley, we don't have that, although we get great support from
sheriff.
the sheriff.
It
That
takes us time to get up here,
Right.
you know, and then on the days when you guys are landlocked, it's, you know, it'd be nice to have both cops and firemen here, so. But it's expensive to do that, so. So that's gonna be something you guys are gonna have to really sit down and look at. Do we do both? Like we do in Bear Valley, it's, would be a similar aspect here, you know, people, property, mountain, everything is almost exactly like Bear Valley, so.
When you say 700 something per a year, is it, per household?
Yeah, we've been doing it for 25 years, so it goes up incrementally, like around 4%.
Does Bear Valley also have apartment condos, or are these all homes?
No, we have more condos. No, we have about 180 condos.
And
Yes, three.
those homeowners also pay the
Yes,
700 something?
yes.
I just had one thought about all of this, given this time last year, we had a temporary advisory committee that led to a community event in December. Given that it's early October and we're still waiting for some of these numbers to come formalized, would it make sense for the communications committee now to think about putting on a community event in a similar spirit as last year to go through all these details, so it's not just a board meeting per se, you know, in addition to a board meeting and whatnot, but I think that was a very well attended. We had 150 some people last year. If the timing works, given that we have all these things in flight, it's just an open question or thought.
I think until the board makes a decision, first it's a go or no go decision once the numbers come in. Right? I mean, that's the first step.
Right.
So we'll have hopefully a proposal from Eastern Alpine. We have a proposal from AFPD. We'll get our CalPERS numbers and Rick will do the internal estimate. And then the board's going to have numbers to look at. It sounds like we'll have two options under Eastern Alpine, which would be law enforcement fire or just fire. Did I summarize that right, Sheriff?
Yeah.
And then there's going to be dollars associated. Then the board's going to have to say, is this a go or no go at this dollar amount? And if it is a go to go through the 218 process, then yes, I think we should have a meeting. But until the board makes a go, no go decision, I don't know that it's behooves us to have community meetings if we still haven't made up our mind which way we're gonna go.
Yeah, so we're gonna get like 3 topics going at once, so it'll get confusing, but I'm still on the law enforcement or medical, which is the 218 wouldn't raise money for law enforcement, correct?
It's not currently considering that. No, that's outside their scope.
It's strictly fire. Yeah.
So how is it done in Bear Valley? Is it a tax? Or fire medical?
It's on our property tax bill,
Okay.
fire assessment every year. Okay.
So they did a 218.
Yeah.
If it's an
So we have
assessment,
to, if we wanted that, we would have to expand the 218.
we would have to change the scope with the consultant and have that incorporated as well. Yes.
Okay.
And the county pays for 2 deputies, general fund monies there and 2 deputies that come out of the assessment.
Yep.
Along with their pay increases and
Yep.
stuff that's all factored into that. So that the county would have to consider putting, you know, maybe a full-time deputy here supplemented with a 218 to the 2 more, or you're gonna need a minimum of 4 here deputies. Slash firefighters, for days off, things like that, so.
Yep.
You know, sick time, that kind of thing, so we gotta consider, so.
Are you saying for if we also do law?
What?
Okay.
Does Bear Valley have volunteers as well? They do, don't
They
they?
do,
So then-
we have volunteers,
Oh, well.
yeah, Miss Terry's one, so.
Yeah.
So you can keep your volunteer staff along with it, it works great. That works great there. It would work great here. You know, and if you have paid chief, that might be something you guys might want to consider is paying a chief like we do in Eastern Alpine in Markleeville. that can run the day-to-day operations of the things and go out on calls for these guys, help these guys out, so. You get the best of both worlds if you really want law enforcement here full-time, because they'd be assigned here. Under my direction, and we may have to pull them out from time to time to do calls on different things, but mostly they would be here. They would be your deputies, your firemen. They would work under your logo. So that's something to consider. Other than it's expensive. We'd like to do it at Eastern Alpine, but it's, now you can't do it, so. On that side, so.
Any other comments? Yes, Emmanuel?
Curiosity question, when you, Eric, when you said about Amador on CalPERS, I thought you made a statement, I'm sorry, I may have not heard you correctly, but Amador is not in CalPERS.
No, AFP, yeah, Amador County is, AFPD is not.
Right.
And that's one of the things that Rick mentioned is that one of the options we could look at is to go through a LAFCO process to create a new entity, not us, that would not be CalPERS and would only be formed contingent on the 218 passing. That's one option. We're also looking, we have paid CalPERS to give us a proposal because right now our CalPERS, we can't have safety under ours. So we had to get a proposal to bring in. So it's CalPERS 2.7 PEPRA safety. And so we're getting a proposal on that. That's when Rick will, so if we had a paid fire chief, as Sheriff Bender mentioned, we would have to do that too. We'd still have to do it because right now I can't have a paid fire chief with CalPERS. That's not permitted.
Paid fire chief.
Today, I can, under our current CalPERS, I cannot have paid safety officers, fire, law enforcement, anything. I can't until we enter into a contract with CalPERS for safety retirement.
And that's what the county does too. So for us, the chief is now safety, obvious law enforcement is safety. So they entered into a separate contract.
Do we have a time frame for when we'll have a CalPERS calculation? And it sounds like East Alpine is imminent, but like, would this be an agenda item for next meeting in November?
If possible.
So we're hoping-
CalPERS, yeah, it sounds like they're, well, the benefit of local government and Sheriff Bender, we can get stuff done. There's a disadvantage with state government and CalPERS. I have
Throw your weight around.
I have no weight to throw around.
Started in January.
And we started this in January with them, and they have contractual timelines there to provide stuff within, and they have missed those consistently. So I could be November. I always could be hopeful.
Going back to, so we had three things going on at one time, so I think, are you
I'm just juggling.
satisfied?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Going back to my comment about the community forum or whatnot, my point on that is more that we will have a lot more information even before we vote on what, we're gonna go this direction. And I think it'd be prudent to have the community, whether it's a Zoom call in November 1st or after, whatever. Most people don't attend board meetings, so having something specified in that way, I'm just saying that I think it would be wise of us to get all of this summarized in the community, given our last conversation about how we have to repeat and say and do many times, and we sent an email, a month or so ago after the July meeting, maybe. I just think that it is important that we have community conversation on this, given our last experiences around this topic. I want to make sure people know what's going on and give input into our votes. And then before we vote on a direction, frankly, I would like to hear more feedback from the community, and the more concrete that we have before that, the better, in my opinion. But
Well, I mean, we certainly need a big change in sentiment.
if these things
Right.
were going to pass, then
Yeah.
yes. But at the very least, I want people to know, like, here's what we're facing, here's our reality. Here are the reasons that we have to do something, right? We are running in the red right now as it is. We have a volunteer fire chief who might retire at some point. So we have to solve this in some way, and here's the options that we have found. Here are the ways to solve it. and the third option is divest. We're, here's how much you would pay, given the work of the engineering study. Okay, we want you to know this. Board's gonna have a conversation about this at a board meeting to vote on maybe which of these specifically to then send you a potentially a ballot, or we choose not to based on this conversation. Your feedback, we won't even send you a ballot because we're not even confident it's worth the time to do that. I don't know. That's an option. I mean, I'm not saying that we should or not, but I'm just saying that that's an option as well. I just think it's important that we get community involved in this in a more concrete way. We had 150 people show up for the thing in December. I'm not saying we have to wait till December either. Do it before that.
I
That's my
concur with that. I would put it in December at the heart of holiday time like we did last time. I would make this one of the main, but not the only item of a KMPUD update, open house presentation, whatever. Last time it was just fire, and that seemed appropriate. But maybe this time it even includes things like a discussion about the customer survey that will have finished just 2 months prior. So there's plenty of good reason to have such a meeting. And I suspect it would get a big turnout. And it would also be it's a helpful milestone if we have something like December 15th or 20th or whatever it is, to get some preliminary something out of Francisco and to even if just the letter that we sent out 2 months ago on this topic was good, and but just to repeat and elaborate, that letter had a lot of news beyond where we were back in December, and it wouldn't be bad just to reiterate all those points that were in the letter.
Thanks. Anyone else have thoughts on that? Okay. Well, I guess we will.
There's no decision on this.
No decision on it. We will not.
Agenda item though. Okay.
No, but I mean, I think not that we have to.
Well, are you asking the communications committee to take that as?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to ask Bob to form another tack on this. I think communications could put this on, because unlike the tack where we were, I think, doing a lot different work at that point, I think this would be more of just organizing an event to put a laser
Not
focus.
developing the policy here.
No,
Communicating.
this is communicating what we're talking about here, because 2 p.m. on a Friday does not seem like the most popular time for people to show up to have this as the agenda item on a board meeting, right? And I guess my point is that getting this as a highlight was successful last year and getting community involvement. And I'm saying that doing the similar thing to get, even if it's just giving them the same information that we would have at a board meeting potentially, has value in our community. And it was successful last year, and we had great partnership from Kirkwood Mountain Resort in terms of a facility, food and things like that. I'm just saying, doesn't even have to be that. We could just do it as a Zoom call and just make it very focused, and it could be in an evening, for example. I don't know, another time, but I just really want to make sure that we have done the proper steps to get the community involvement informed before we take actions on the votes, because we did that last time and we saw how it turned out, and I want to make sure that we don't do the exact same thing we did before.
But Eric, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but you feel like it's premature, is what you said, right?
Yes.
Bob, you have any thoughts? You can't, even though you're on Zoom, we want your input.
I feel like we don't have enough information now. That let's see where we are in November, and then decide what the calendar looks like.
Right, and I just to be clear, I'm not saying that given the information I have today, I want to schedule it to have it. I'm just saying, looking ahead, I feel like this is something that we could do. So if in November we have more information, I'd like to get that into the community's hands at that time. Highlighted.
Any chance Francisco will have preliminary views on relative benefit?
No, as Rick said, we don't know where they're at on their analysis yet. So we have a meeting with them next week.
Oh, well, that'll be illuminating, but
If we can get CalPERS information back, more information from Francisco, of course, the sheriff, and the idea of public safety versus just fire. I mean, there's a lot to consider and bring back to the board for your consideration. So
What's the date you guys usually do? I can't remember what the date was last year.
for,
For that meeting we had last year.
it was the first time we ever had it.
Okay.
And so it was, there's no usual, it was just selectively picked because it was the week between, it was like December 27th or 8th or so.
Okay.
So at a time when we felt like there would be a lot of community members in Valley so that we could have a large participation, which we did. We had 150 people total, I think 110 or so in person, over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, thank you again for coming.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I'm gone on vacation the 8th to the 18th, so.
It would be,
December.
you would be,
So hopefully it's after.
it would be after that, I would imagine, if we did it the same way. Again, I'm not saying we have to.
What do you want to do? You want to revisit this
Yeah, we can
next
do that.
meeting?
Yeah, next meeting, get
Okay,
it.
so we can
Last year was December 28th.
move on.
Move on. All right, I don't think there are any other, there's no decision here. So let's move on. All right. 10, major project updates.
Sorry, I didn't get that into the packet this time, but everything is tracking well except for the electric master plan.
I got an email yesterday.
Okay, well, that's,
We have an update.
yeah. So,
It's not that, it's a-
yeah, so it's not done. So everything else, all the other master plans are tracking well. The Wintergreen Sewer Project, which Brandy will talk about or Rick will talk about next, is proceeding well. So nothing, everything's tracking except for electric master plan. It's the only one that's following behind.
Any questions from the public? Any board member comments? Okay, move on to number 11. Manager report.
The CSDA conference was good. I actually learned something new about the Brown Act that even I didn't know. Well, at least I attend and I pay attention to them, so that should be good for the whole district. But being in the service area is sufficient to constitute a quorum. You don't have to as long as you're physically in the service area, you don't have to physically be in the same room to constitute a physical quorum of 3, which never knew. So I don't know if you knew that or not, but that's in your service area is the whole county for both of you. So it was an interesting one I never knew, and there you go, I learned something. The speech went well for the LAFCO, a lot of interest. There's 28 other counties that are considering doing that, so it was good to help them, give them the highlights and the lowlights and what to be on the lookout for. And so it was overall a very good conference, a lot of good information. I also attended the CDAC conference on municipal debt in anticipation of the 218. It has to do with, bond issuance, consultants, notices, the legal proceeding, the post-legal proceeding notices and posting documents. And that was very helpful. Treasurer Ma actually came and spoke to us the second day. So that was interesting to hear what's going on statewide. If anyone wants to buy some land, it sounds like there's going to be a train going from Rancho Cucamonga to Vegas and go buy some land out that way through Baker and Barstow. Apparently, they're estimating pretty big growth there. So, and other than that, I don't have a whole lot. So,
Any questions from the public for our general manager? Any board member questions, comments? Okay, let's move over to the operations report, which is number 12 on the agenda.
So for fire department, year to date, we're at 81 calls. There were 11 calls in September for service. Of the 11, one was a search and rescue on the Amador side of the hill. And it was a low angle rescue. I'm sorry, one was a search and rescue for Alpine County, and our crew assisted Alpine County with search and rescue. 2 were alarm calls. One was a low angle rescue call. And I get excited with that because it was literally at the very end of the rope. And the patient was in pretty bad shape and had to be flown out. But
What's low angle mean?
where you put a rope over the edge and you put them into a basket and you'll literally carry them up the hill, or they haul you up the hill. They have a pulley system, essentially haul you up the hill. But our guys, we just trained on that 2 weeks or 3 weeks before, and then sure enough, we had the call, and it worked out really well.
Where was this?
Maiden's Grave. So I went out on the rock and doing a photograph and fell through a hole about 45 feet. And then landed at the bottom and survived. So anyway, that's probably the most notable call. That for September, 5 of the calls were EMS, just medical calls. two are EMS relating or involving a vehicle. And one of those was a motorcycle versus a vehicle where I had one volunteer respond for our department, and he did a great job by himself until Eastern Alpine County came, and between Eastern Alpine County and our one guy, they were able to take care of business. For the on-call schedule, there were 120 available shifts, and 10 of those shifts were not covered, and so I covered them remotely. But there was one person during the shift, so it worked out. It was better than the month before, but again, we're working with volunteers and they're doing the best they can to be here all the time. And so I want to thank them for doing the best they can, especially during the summer when they want to be with their families and doing fun stuff. So
Sorry to go off topic. Do Bear Valley volunteers or Alpine County volunteers get paid a stipend?
Yes,
Bear Valley also.
Just recently.
just started over there, yeah.
Thank you.
Moving on to solid waste, unless there's any other questions about fire department operations. We have our very last green waste container over by the treatment plant. I think it's the 40-yard still, the big one. Okay. So it's the larger container. It's about a quarter full, but as soon as that fills up, we're not gonna replace it. We're gonna get into winter here. So just reminder, this is the last of it. And thanks to Firewise as well as the Amador County Fire Safe Council for providing that dumpster for us this season through grant money. We really appreciate it. We also want to thank Alpine County for their final and additional round of chipping that they performed in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Did an excellent job, and Clint Celio coordinated that with Firewise again, worked with Firewise. So thank you for that. At this time, our planned district chipping for September, now October, is probably not going to happen because there's really no material for us to chip. And so our operational staff's concentrating on other things, including some projects that I'd like Brandy to talk about. You want to talk about the treatment plant as well as the lateral line replacement?
Sure. So the wastewater treatment plant project is winding down for the year. H.E. Walters, the general contractor, has demobilized off-site. We do still expect to have Aqua Era back in November to replace a motor control cabinet. That's still upcoming. Submersible pumps were done, screen, the transmitter is all done, all up and operational. After the November push, we'll be down to replacing the 2 PLCs, and that'll be done next year. So far, so good over there. We did find a couple of things to work through with the contractor. A water line that wasn't giving us enough pressure to the 2 new pieces of equipment. But they've been very receptive and easy to work with. So we expect to have that all resolved. And then as Rick mentioned, and as you might have seen out towards the highway, we are moving forward on the Wintergreen Sewer project. It's a replacement of 130 feet of sewer line that is in bad shape and is actually flatter than we thought it was. So we upsized that line as part of this project. It was a 6-inch, it's going to an 8-inch line. The contractor, Norberg General Engineering, has been on site since last week. They surveyed, they did vegetation removal, they started excavation, and they've actually cored the downstream manhole because they had to increase the size for the larger penetration. So all of that's been done. We found an unexpected lateral going into this line. So they ordered a Y to put in next week. But they're on track for project completion by the 18th of this month. They should be out of the ground before that. And so our crew's working closely with them to make sure that goes forward. That's it.
Thanks, Brandy. 2 other
Brandy,
items.
I'm sorry, I have 2 questions for Brandy, if I can.
Yes, sir.
So I assume there are customers that are affected. How long are their properties unavailable, or how is that being managed?
That is a great question. The engineering, Norberg has come up with a bypass plan Our original plan was simply to have them use the collection system and the manholes as to collect the sewage so that they could, put it into trucks and take that off site. But they actually came up with and submitted a bypass plan. So they have a bypass pipe set up beside the work area and they're pumping continuously during the day while they're working. And then they're hooking everything back in at night. So we are not anticipating any outages of any kind. I did get 3 customer communications asking exactly that question. And I let them know that we're not expecting anything, that so far the work's been going good and we're happy with the plan. But if we find any unexpected issues, we'll communicate that out.
Okay, thanks. My second question regarding the improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. My memory is that one of the biggest problems was the control system. Has that been replaced yet, or is that next year?
I think that you're talking about the PLCs. So the work and the programming is mostly done. We had anticipated putting one of the 2 PLCs into operation this fall. But the contractor asked, and we discussed internally and with Stantec, if they could wait until next construction season in the summer, low flow season, to put that in, because they felt that they needed a little more time to test everything out, to run it through the ringer and make sure that when they go live that there aren't any problems in high flow season. And so we're going to do both of those PLCs next year.
Okay, thank you.
So a couple of things, the playground, this will probably be the last weekend that the playground will be up, and then we're gonna take it down hopefully next week and store for the winter, protect the equipment. And then finally, I am pleased to announce all the snow removal contracts we have sent out have been signed and returned. The first
KMA.
Including KMA, and the first payment was due October 1st. We only had one HOA that missed that deadline. And I'm glad to see that everybody signed, and we're gearing up for winter with one position still available, one seasonal position that we're looking to hire.
Eric, is it appropriate to ask that?
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of HOAs that still have not paid.
Oh, well,
So Rick, just in terms of payment, we had, I can't remember if this was last year or 2 years ago.
Yes.
We had asked about automatic, okay, so you know what I'm gonna ask. So auto payment, what's our percentage that are on auto pay at this point?
So if they were on ACH before, we've kept them on ACH. The problem is we switched banks and some of that information was lost in the switchover. So ones that were historically on ACH, when we sent them their invoice, we also sent them the ACH form. We've already got 3 back from them. They want to continue with ACH. So there's only a handful that don't do ACH. I think there's probably about 6, I think, out of 22.
Okay.
That don't do it. So, and when we sent the invoice even to those, we sent the ACH form as well.
Great.
And so we did draws. We did 1 draw of 8 and 1 draw of 1. So we've ACH 9 of them, and then the other 3 came in. So we'll do another batch of those 3.
Okay.
But for the ones that haven't come in yet, there's going to be a 10% penalty for not having paid yet. So.
Tough way to start season, but you said,
It's not uncommon. Rick and I were just looking through our emails and we were not getting payments last year until as late as December in one case. And so we didn't plow them. They were just lucky it wasn't a lot of snow.
And Eric, have all the poles been replaced that needed it?
No, because we haven't staffed up with seasonal staffing yet. Some have, but not all.
Okay.
but the equipment is on deck in the shop. We have plastic and metal. We're ready to go.
Yeah, all the materials here. But yeah, I think we've extended offers to at least 2, maybe 3 seasonals, and we have 2 potentially returning, and we're waiting to close that loop. So we might be fully staffed very shortly.
We have 3 seasonals that will have offers outstanding next week, 2 returning, and we're looking for 1 more.
3 plus 2, so it's full staff means 6
temporaries for this year.
temporaries in addition to manager and
Yeah, there's 2 full-time.
2 full-time, including manager, and 6.
Correct.
okay, thank you. Any other questions for Rick? All right, let's move ahead to agenda item 13, standing committee reports. Let's start with finance.
Nothing we had the two items in the packet that we already went through.
I think the other thing we'd add in is just progress on the audit.
The audit's underway.
Yeah, they're saying they're gonna have the draft for us for finance, for the next finance meeting.
And probably the other item is what we talked about too, which is we don't have the administrative manager position staffed yet.
Thank you. Good. Operations,
Operations didn't meet. We're gonna meet next Wednesday.
planning,
Planning committee is at a decision juncture because the committee has essentially resolved and taken care of all of the legacy items that have been on our agenda over the last 6 months. And so in one sense, we're done. Which then begs the question of the future of the planning committee. One scenario is that there be no future to it. But what I would like to propose, and Eric, I hope to discuss this with you just in the last few days, so I don't mean to spring any surprises on you. But I'm proposing that I lead a few conversations, Peter and obviously Eric, on other things the planning committee might do. And bring that back on the agenda for next month. Specifically, the planning committee might get more involved in planning, like the master plans, the overall plan, the way we communicate plans to the community or to the market. Bob has the tradition of writing an annual report that gives some forward-looking things. Our FAQs include some questions about the future in each utility. But maybe there's a role for the planning committee to play some constructive advisory role in our master plans and our overall plan. And that's something that I'll be discussing with you, Eric, and top staff, if you think that's appropriate. And then hope to bring something back on the agenda next month.
thank you. Bob, you want to do personnel next?
Sure. All the items on personnel we brought to the board for consideration. So there's nothing additional I would add.
Okay. Thank you. And then I'll do communications. The report from our last meeting is in the packet. I just want to highlight and say thank you to Director Tuber for the work that he did going through newsletters and giving some content policy recommendations, and gratitude to the staff for already taking action on those. So we've seen changes to the newsletter format already. So thank you very much for that. Also, committee member Sandy Goldberg is helping us think about a newsletter subscriber campaign. I was very encouraged when seeing some of the feedback, people really enjoy it, right? We're trying to improve the content and try to get more and more people subscribed. And then I'll just mention again, the FAQs that I mentioned earlier are in final forms, and we're trying to get this out sooner than later. And I'd like, hopefully in the next couple of months, the next meeting we'll be going out with some final versions, and then we'll bring it back to the board for review and get them posted. So I think things moving in the right direction on communications. Next, we'll move on to
And I think we'll also pick out questions from the survey to add into the FAQs if they're not already there, which I know you said, but that's.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So maybe we'll be by December to have all the final FAQs.
That's right.
To the board.
Or we just get it out first and then update over time too.
Yeah, if it's going to be a living document, of course.
Document. So, and that is the intent, is that these FAQs are not one time. We will continually revisit as a committee. Next, I'll move on to IT and cybersecurity. We did not meet, so there's nothing to report there. And then finally, LAFCO did not meet. Did I cover everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's number 13. Let's move on to agenda item 14, temporary advisory committee reports. We do not currently have any. So we'll move on to item 15 for general board discussion, where we can ask for questions or clarification on items for a subsequent agenda topic.
I believe Director Mitrotondo will not be here in person on November 1st. So we just wanted to make sure
Oh, sure.
with that we have at least 3 that plan to physically be here on November 1st. So I know, Peter, you'll be here. John?
Actually left town last week.
Now that I know that I don't have to be here, I just have to be.
Just have to be close.
Yeah, I plan to be here.
Bob?
And I will definitely be there too.
Okay, so that's 3.
All right.
Okay. So even if you're remote, John, we're good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Otherwise, we would want to talk about potentially moving it because we do have the audit coming back for November. So we've targeted that date with Moss Adams, and I hate to move and have them have a conflict. So appreciate that. And then
Thank
you'll
you.
give me your location as soon as you can.
I will. So we do that. Any other board discussion?
Doug, I just want to thank you for filling in today.
All the job, man.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for supporting.
Very well.
I'm in charge here, said.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment, Bob, and thank you for everyone supporting me in that. All right, any other discussion? Otherwise, I will move number 16, adjourn today's meeting, and remind you all that the next meeting for regular scheduled is Friday, November 1st at 2 p.m. So hope to see you then. Thank you.